Hello to everyone at home. Hi everyone here. So Michael's introduced me. I want to just expand a bit on that. I'm a psychologist and I practiced therapy for a while. I also did my thesis on mindfulness, and I did facilitate multiple mindfulness group therapy, mostly in the Kabat-Zinn tradition of mindfulness-based stress reduction. And my passion is really where psychology and spirituality meet each other in the development of the whole human being. So I didn't know much about Thich Nhat Hanh before I was invited to come to this talk. I was happily surprised to hear that Thich Nhat Hanh's vision of spiritual growth was really integral. He really has this idea of the development of the whole being, um, including interconnectivity with one another. Even goes as far as writing a book on healing the inner child, which when I find that out, pretty interesting. So my goal today here is to talk about the development of oneself from maybe more of a past lens versus today's lens. Spiritual tradition used to be based really on this idea that we have an ego. The ego controls us, often not for the best outcome. And spiritual development in the past centuries was really about transcending the ego. So we were going from having an ego, which is the conditioned ego, to trying to transcend the ego. In the past century or more or so, the field of psychology, a lot more science, eventually neuroscience, helped us to understand that our ego was not a static thing. And in this idea of going from an ego to transcending the ego, a lot of tradition have kind of thrown away the baby with the bathwater, meaning seeing the ego as all bad. Not everyone is uh, believes that. I have three little example here of contemporary traditions or visionaries that embrace the ego instead of trying to transcend it right away. So we have Carl Gustav Jung, who talked about development of a mature ego that was really important on our way to individuation, which was kind of his way of talking about enlightenment or connection with our soul. We have one of my favorite, Ken Wilber, who talked about integral theory and the difference between the path of spiritual realization, which was for him the path of waking up, which was vertical, and the path of growing up, which was more or less this idea of developing our mature self. And I don't know if you've ever heard of the concept of spiritual bypassing, but it's kind of a central piece of the talk that I want to do today. And the spiritual bypassing, it's the name that was given not so long ago of the idea of using spiritual beliefs and practices to avoid unresolved emotional issues. And just diving into the deep spiritual dimensions of ourselves and without really allowing ourselves to heal different parts from the past. Great example of spiritual bypassing. We've all seen and heard of individuals or gurus who could get really enlightened, highly spiritual achievement in their states of spiritual advancement, but then they would have very unethical behavior because of inflated ego or using people financially or sexually. So you can see you have high spiritual attainment with low maturity of self. So let's talk a little bit here about first. Let's give a little metaphor. I like the metaphor of seeing our ego as one of our vehicles. When if you're here, you probably believe in some kind of concept of the soul. When the soul incarnates on Earth, first we take the simplest vehicle is our body. We need our body to move around in the physical world. Well, the ego can be conceived or understood a bit like our psychic vehicle, which is formed of thoughts and emotions and a bunch of other things and memories. But basically, if we see our ego as our psychic vehicle, we realize that it's important for us to optimize this vehicle, to do the repairs that need to be done, because often in the childhood it wasn't optimal development, and how an healthy, mature ego can contribute to building an healthy life and even eventually supporting our spiritual development. Okay. Before we talked about developing mature self, let's talk about first what I would call the conditioned self. So what we usually talk about as the ego is basically just the first formation of the conditioned self, I will call it. What's the conditioned self is our psyche organizes our sense of self and our sense of identity mostly throughout the first few years of our life. When it comes to early childhood, and now we have a lot of neurological data around it, what happens is the brain at first doesn't really understand the difference between me and the other. Then the sense of ego barely starts with understanding the difference between who I am and the boundaries between I and the world around. From there, the ego's role is to keep us alive. Our brain is really trying to keep us alive. It's trying to feed our attachment with other human beings. It's built mostly on adaptability. How can I adapt to my environment to survive? Because a baby or a kid human cannot survive on itself. And it's also based a lot on predictability. So with the interaction I have with my environment, what do I learn about how I am, how the world is, and how other people are? And by the time we get into 6, 7 years old, we start to become a little more conscious, but we already have years and years and years of learned adaptive behaviors, beliefs, emotional responses that have been hardwired in our brain, kind of unconsciously. This is what I would call the conditioned self. What happens is that when left unchecked, when people don't go back to try to understand their conditioned self, their life will be mostly a repetition of those same patterns, a repetition of those same automatic response, of those same beliefs throughout their life. And we used to believe, literally, people used to believe that that's how individuals were, the individual were stuck in that conditioned ego for their whole life. Another little part of not so little part of the conditioned selves is what we call the shadow. And the shadow is all the parts of ourselves that we've alienated, hid from our own consciousness as a way to just help us deal with the world. These are usually elements that are seen as unwanted or unacceptable or feared to be. They have the fear that they're going to be judged by the outside world. So they're going to be put aside. Or also parts of ourselves that have been really hurt, that hold a lot of pain. And it can be taxing on the system, on the psyche. So we take those little parts of ourselves that have been hurt and we push them down and we hide them. We repress them. And these form some kind of what we would call our shadow. All of these automatic response of the conditioned self is what usually people call the ego. Automatic, not necessarily adaptive, and often pretty much unconscious. But what happens is that this ego is like the automatic ego is like a really, really nice car that, okay, it needs a bit of work, but it can really be put back into really, really good shape. And this is what we want to do. And what I truly believe is a great task of ourselves if you want to become a whole human being in this world. So when we talked about the development of the mature self compared to the automatic conditioned self, what happened with the conditioned self, it happens on its own. We just take those lessons and we create this adaptive version of ourselves. When it comes to the mature self, it's voluntary. We have to choose and we have to make the effort to actually develop what is called a mature self or a more integrated part of ourselves. Here I'm just going to quickly talk, because it's a fairly quick talk, about 2 ways in which we can develop our mature self. The first one is through healing elements associated with the past. So repressed or unresolved emotional issue. And the second one is by developing skills and maturity. Okay, let's take a little example. Let's say let's take a person who's been bullied in school, bullied in elementary school, a bit in high school. Through that, they've learned to have a vision of themselves. They've learned to isolate a little more, feel a bit socially awkward, a bit of social anxiety, a lot of avoidance. So that individual, if he wants to really optimize and go to a mature ego, they will have to probably deal with the hurt, the parts of them that are hurt regarding being bullied, and also develop skills that their social isolation didn't allow them to develop normally during their childhood and their teenage years. Okay, so let's dive a little more into the healing, and then we'll dive into the development of skill. Healing. Healing is it's a big theme. Um, the way the psyche work is every unresolved emotional experience that are inside of our psyche is bound to be reactivated in the present moment, depending on the condition outside. And it also takes a lot of energy for our psyche to keep it inside, keep it in check inside of us. So the healing process is allowing ourselves to take those parts that have maybe have been hurt or traumatized even, to bring it up to the surface to deal with them. I love that the vision of Thich Nhat Hanh, and that's what I use a lot on therapy. Often it comes with inner child work, because those parts of ourselves that have been touched or hurt are within the brain, inside the structure that are linked to emotion, that are most associated with childhood. So let's just take a little example. Let's say you want to, you have a child that's crying because one of their toy got broken. If you go to that child and you try to tell them, don't worry, your toy is impermanent, the reality is your soul, and one day you will transcend it, you're probably not going to have good result in calming that individual. And it's the same for the part of our psyches that need healing. And the more healing we do, the more the less our past is going to re-emerge in our presence, and the less we'll have to deal with those automatic reactions. You should have all gotten a little paper and a little pen. So I just want to take a second to have a little personal reflection here. I want to make sure everyone's got their pen ready. And it's going to help for our discussion. But just close your eyes. Take a deep breath. And look inside. Are there any hurtful parts of your past that you have not yet addressed? Experiences that keeps influencing your present, consciously or not, whether they are a little T trauma or big T trauma. And you feel you would be ready to look at. You can open your eyes, and if something came up, just write it down. It's just for you. People finish writing. I'm glad to see people have. It's good. Allow yourself to connect with those parts of you that are asking for your attention. For the healing process, we have a lot of different tools that exist. We're really lucky. All the research in psychology and trauma work. And one of the things I want to mention here is that the kind of work that might be really hard to do on our own. That's why no matter what type of therapy or support you can have for healing parts can be useful. The second core element to develop a mature sense of self that can help you navigate and be a whole person is the development of skills and maturity. So as we evolve as human, learning to navigate the world around us is extremely important. And we've all heard the expression arrested development. Depending on what happens in our life, we will block our development. We will not be exposed to skills that would be useful for us to learn. And sometimes we also avoid to learn about different dimensions of life that can help us expand and be, I would say, the most stable individual that we can, the most resilient individual we can be. So I just want to mention a few dimensions of life here that we might not have learned about, but are important to the development of a mature self. Emotional regulation is a good example. Yes, mindfulness really helps for those kinds of practices, but there are other skills in understanding how emotion works. For sure, the whole area of maturity in relationship, whether it's in friendship, with family, intimate relationship, or work-related relationship. Am I able to create fulfilling connection with other people, or am I more avoidant? Am I able to have reciprocal relationship where I give and I receive too, and I'm not always just giving? And also, am I able relationally to have healthy boundaries? Am I able to have healthy communication with other people? Compassionate assertiveness, or am I always kind of hidden and have a hard time telling my truth? Around money, am I financially literate, or have I put this aside in my life? I've not really learned to deal with that dimension. The body, for sure, the body is a big part of our human experience. Have I learned to take care of my body? Because our body takes so much of the cost of our adaptive automatic behaviors, of all our automatic response, whether it's eating or sabotaging our own health, and professional life and other areas of our life. So here we're just going to do another little moment of reflection. If you want to close your eyes, and I'll invite you to take a second to think for yourself. Are there areas in my life where I could improve and take responsibility for? Dimensions that I've deemed unimportant and avoided, just so I wouldn't face the discomfort of the growth process. Which areas of my life am I ready to take responsibility for? So just like spiritual development, the development of a healed, healthy, mature ego is an ongoing process. And it's complementary to the development of spiritual realization and to go towards a transcendence of an ego. Because no matter where you go, when you close your eyes in meditation, you'll always come back in this. And I truly believe that if the goal was to only bathe in the non-dual realm of the I am and things like that, we wouldn't have had to incarnate. And our goal in this life is to both feel our soul, but also be the best expression of this soul within this lifetime. What the world needs right now, there's plenty of spiritual or religious people that are more or less mature, and we know how bad this can, how bad of a turn this can take. But what the world needs right now is not more spiritual people. The world needs more mature spiritual people. And I hope that this little very quick talk helps you see what's the tiny step you can take in that direction of becoming a little more mature spiritual person. I was told that after the talk, there's room for a little discussion. So I've prepared a few little questions around the talk we've had today. And nobody's forced to talk or say anything, but I was wondering if any of you related first to past experience where you've healed parts of yourself and you felt that it made a difference in your own spiritual practice or the way in which you connected with the world around you. Somebody would like to share maybe a healing experience to just illustrate how going to do the emotional work or going to do the healing work can help.
Just say, I really like that line. You just said the world needs more spiritual people. Or no, the world needs less spiritual people and more mature people. That really resonated. I just really wanted to say that I really like that a lot, and that resonated a lot. I'm not quite sure how to respond to it, but it really resonates.
Thank you very much. So, said, yeah.
Okay, I guess I speak now, June bowing in. Let me see if I understood your question right. Which part of you have you like past that I healed that and how that affects my spiritual development?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, like I first wanted to also share that the compassionate assertiveness, that's a beautiful way of summarizing like that expression resonated with me, and I would say that's my path. I've been when I was younger and was a yoga teacher, I think I was a little focused too much on bliss aspects of spiritual experience.
Yeah.
But there was an avoidance of security, avoidance of and honestly like fear of really facing how vulnerable I can be in this world where, I wasn't making a whole lot of money. I was immigrant on like expiring visa.
Oh my God.
So I would say that by facing the fear and facing the vulnerability in this reality and learning to ground myself actually allows me to be holding space for people who are trying to do the same. And I consider that to be a spiritual development.
Yeah.
So hope I meander my way to answering your question.
Sweet. Thank you very much.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, the sorry people at home. It seems like you didn't have the comfortable mic. So like
Hope I projected.
And now I wanted to open it to, is there any courageous individual that would like to share with us the notes they've taken on maybe a part of themselves that they've realized is asking for a bit of healing, or part of themselves they're asking for a little bit of growth at this point in their life?
Magandang yan. So in the last year, I have very much realized that intimacy has been something that I put in the background.
Yeah.
And that was because I always thought that I need to work on something else before that.
Mhm.
Like first came career or first came education, first a job,
Yeah.
and then everything but that. And then I'm at a point in my life where I don't have a lot of time left.
Mhm.
Uh, and so the idea of being alone has been creeping up.
Yeah.
And so I'm coming to the realization of either doing something radical about it or just accepting it.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for the courage of your sharing. Um, Doing something radical or accepting. I'm all about tiny steps. Maybe it can be an in-between OC.
Yeah,
and it's
I don't
good
know.
to-
See, that's
yeah.
where I am.
But just the fact that you allow yourself to connect with that, it's probably stressful outside of your comfort zone. And talking here today will probably help you commit a little more to
Yeah.
face that or create more intimacy in your life. Thank you so much for sharing. Would somebody else want to share with this, or maybe in general, what the talk brought for them?
Something that you said, well, going back to your first question, what came up for me is that I'm in a place right now where I am currently healing a past wound, and being able to observe myself as I'm healing it, like not in conflict with it at all, just like, wow, okay, I see you, and I know I'm familiar with you. You've always, always been there. But what's interesting to me is that I have been able to. It has helped me to generate more compassion for myself and for others, because the reality is we never really know what people are holding on to, right? And someone's external or their actions and their behavior, if it's not in alignment with bringing joy to themselves or to others, then there's some suffering going on, right?
Yeah.
And I'm just really grateful that I must be at a place where I'm healing, because when I see that suffering, even when it's directed to me and I feel like it's unjust,
Yeah.
I'm not angry and I'm not wanting to match the behavior. I'm not wanting to like defend myself. I'm more wanting I'm more curious
Mhm.
about what do you need right now? What's happening? What's going on? And so I'm really just really grateful to be at that place, because it's really helping me to grow, to show myself a lot more compassion, like genuinely,
Yeah.
looking in the mirror in the midst of me being aware of something that I really don't love about myself, or something that I don't love that I do, and saying, you know what, I love you. I'm here for you, even in the midst of all of this, and you're amazing to me. Like, and I'm grateful to be you, even with that.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
yeah.
Thank you so much for this little testimonial about integrating all those parts. And as you said, the way we learn to see ourselves and heal our parts will influence the way we interact with other people. So thanks a lot for that. And maybe I had another question, because I wanted to connect my talk with the teachings that are here. So did anything resonates for people who are maybe more familiar with Thich Nhat Hanh's lineage, and how this talk or this vision of not just trying to transcend the ego, but actually developing a mature sense of self is important on the spiritual path?
allowing in, I don't know if this is directly a response to that, but it was something that came to mind. Um, when I was trying to think of like things that have healed. And it's something that Thich Nhat Hanh does talk about a lot, which is just the power of passionate listening. And just being able to sit with somebody in their suffering and receive what they want to share without trying to fix them, without trying to give them advice, without trying to like change their mood and cheer them up. All those things, just be present and with them.
Yeah.
And I think that was something I didn't really know how to do. And, you know, I think I've gotten pretty good at it now, and it's
Nice.
largely a part of like being here and like
Yeah.
talking about these things and practicing it. And I just kind of, you know, it's like one of these things where I look back and I'm like, oh, there's 20-year-old me had only
Yeah.
known.
Yeah.
You know, I could have been so much more effective in some situations.
Yeah, and it's a good example of also of skills you've learned. And I know now you're doing the authentic relating gathering, so you're taking it to the next level and try to help other people develop those skills and that ability to connect one-on-one in the truth of what's beautiful and what's harder to look at too. Is there anybody else who would like to share maybe what they've written on the paper? I know it can be a little can be shy sometimes to share something like that, but yeah, Drew.
Drew going in. What I thought about was my creative life. From a really young age, I was really into poetry and writing stories and fiction and all that. But I grew up in a really conservative community. So whenever I would share anything that I'd written, it didn't result in anything good.
Yeah.
Lots of being made fun of, and anything outside the box was just not to be done.
Yep.
When I was in middle school, I entered a poetry contest because I like poetry, and I ended up winning. And there was a whole assembly, and I won a woman's bracelet as a prize because in that town, like a boy doesn't write poetry.
Yeah.
Only girls would enter this. So I received a woman's bracelet in front of everybody, which just humiliated me.
Yeah.
So I've just really kept everything. I've written a lot since then,
Okay.
but just really kept everything, on my laptop and
Just for you.
yeah, got a lot of stuff written, poems and songs and an entire novel and half of another novel.
Whoa.
But just never done anything with it. And a lot of time when I get writer's block, it's not really so much that I can't think of anything, it's that I'm considering how other people are going to view it.
Yeah.
And what reactions might be.
Thanks a lot for sharing that. And do you see how much those formative experiences, including that poetry contest, the impact it's had on its life, and it still has today? Well, thanks a lot for sharing that. I don't know about you guys, but I would love to. I'm super curious about what you wrote, and I feel sad for the world who won't get to see it, at least for now. And I hope that this shed a bit of light to realize that maybe there's a bit of healing work to be done around that, but it doesn't have to be the rest of your life. You don't have to go into your 80s and just adding more things written on your computer that might not never see the light of day. Thank you very much. We still have a bit of time. We have a few people online, or maybe here in the room if people would like to share something. I know for me, I was when I talk about social anxiety, that's where I was. That's kind of a reason I went to psychology, and I had a lot of work to do to be able to eventually do talks like this. So I know it makes a huge difference. And That's why I truly, truly believe in that kind of work, because I've experienced it myself and now share it with the world. So yeah, we still have a bit of time, and so far I can, oh, yes.
I liked your idea of ego and kind of like, it's not all bad. You know, there's
Yes.
good aspects of it. And I didn't really consider that. No way for me to get beyond it.
Mhm.
So it's an idea for me to think about.
Sweet. Let it percolate, let it percolate.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really like the image of not throwing away the baby with the bathwater. There's still some good parts that are needed and actually help us navigate the world, depending on which vision we have of the ego in itself. It's important to navigate the world.
Allow me to quickly share Thich Nhat Hanh's quote. I remember one of
Oh,
the
yes.
questions was that Thich Nhat Hanh, how the teaching connects. I feel like the accepting of ego and not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. There's a really good one-liner, Thich Nhat Hanh's quote that is, when you notice your habit energy that makes you act in a certain way, smile to yourself and say, hello, habit energy. That the patterning is part of you, so don't fight yourself. Is paraphrasing probably of Thich Nhat Hanh that I really loved, because in that accepting and also kind of chuckling like, hello, habit energy, saying that's a mature way of being.
Yes.
It's almost like a parental voice of like, oh, you're doing that thing again, and wanted to share that.
Yes, thank you very much. Yeah, that playfulness too. I don't know. Hi. Playfulness helps us to deal with emotion and everything. And another part that you say, it's more than mature part of self. That's all how the brain works too. So we have all the neuroscience that coming back, that kind of process. And now we know is that meditator have a very thick frontal lobe, because they've got so much regulation and their ability to inhibit all the emotions, so that they bring equanimity. Is just that pure concentration that helps us to with our emotions. So we see where spiritual practice really help us too in the development of a mature self, because my ability to be there for myself, to hold compassion for myself, will heal. But it's the self that heals. It's not the soul. It's the little s self that heals.
Jake Bow again. I'm gonna see if I have this thought fully formed. Sometimes I'm just gonna start talking, and I think I kind of bring it back to the first thing that
Mhm.
you had said about like kind of, let's close our eyes and kind of think about what it is that we need to heal. And I was kind of thinking like, I know there's something, but I don't know what it is. And I wrote that down because I was like, well, I spent the most of my 20s trying to heal and working on that. Now I'm in my 30s and I've come so far, but I know I'm not all the way there. I have a tendency to like fall back on old patterns, and like what you just said about like making the habit of acknowledging that habit energy. And I love getting these little reminders, these little reminders of things. And sometimes I feel like I have to learn the same lesson multiple times, but each time it like kind of sinks in a little bit more. Yeah, I'm not really sure where I'm going with this. Just kind of thinking out loud. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, we revisit the same thing, because these are the experience, the pattern, and every time we bring more consciousness, we let go of some of the trapped emotions or the trapped energy that's within it. We see it. Love is the spiral, so we see it from a higher perspective every time, and you notice it a little earlier. You let's say it's a bad behavior. Let's say I'm getting to like 3 days of gaming intensely. I don't know if it's that, but of gaming. Well, maybe the next time it'll take you only 2 days to realize, wait, I've got into gaming, and eventually you see the craving before you start the gaming. So we go through those themes again, but from a different perspective. And what I want to bring here is that it's allowing this process to happen over and over again, because the worst thing is the avoidance, where we just don't want to see it. And this is where it really just repeats without that higher integration, that different perspective on it. Thank you a lot for sharing. That's how it works. Maybe we have time for one more little sharing or little part of discussion. Like
Van Bouwen, going back to the mature person, the
Yeah.
5 mindfulness trainings make
Yes.
me think of how that puts us in a place where we have to think of taking really mature decisions
Mhm.
every day,
Yes.
which is very elegantly integrated into the spiritual path.
Yes.
Van Bouwen.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it is.
I think Bobby would like to speak.
Okay.
She's
Oh,
got her
we're gonna go online.
Yeah, thank you, Max, for this talk. So I thought, at the very beginning, you mentioned that Ken Wilber was one of your inspirations, I guess. So I have studied spiral dynamics with Ken. Anyway, so yeah, I see kind of how you're doing the same thing that they talk about in spiral dynamics. You do progress, but you don't lose anything. Everything just keeps getting integrated. And so yeah, it was interesting to me to see how to put that information into what we talk about with Thich Nhat Hanh and our Buddhist teachings. They're very compatible. And yeah, so I just wanted to thank you for that. Bowing out.
Thank you very much, Bobby. Yes, there's a lot in Ken Wilber's theory, but I do believe it's very complementary to most tradition, and I was really happy to see that Thich Nhat Hanh have a very integral perspective. So,
Mhm.
Bobby. Okay, I think we'll leave room for the announcement. So thank you everyone for.
There's more time for.
Okay.
5 more minutes.
5 more minutes. I
Add something.
Yes.
While bowing in. Something that you said a bit ago, when you were answering it on, and you said you're into taking baby steps.
Yes.
And something I think of in that is that that's what our walking meditation shows us. It's not 5 steps from now, it's only this one step. And
Yes.
if we take that one step, celebrate that one step. If you can be quiet and just follow your breath one time,
Mhm.
that's all. Everything
Yes.
is in that one breath. And yeah, and to live in the present moment. And healing is all around us in many forms. If we'll just take that one step and that one breath and look and see what's available. So appreciate
Thank-
that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bowing out.
Well, I think it's coming to a close, and I want to thank everyone of you for listening, but also for taking the time to look inside, to answer those questions. And I hope you can take those little white papers at home and maybe take 1 or 2 action in accordance and in the direction of those little papers to make you a little more complete, a little more whole, a little more integrated in your life. Thank you very much.